Hello, Internet, and welcome to the 42nd episode of the Deep Fried Neurons podcast. It is a podcast about stories that I find extremely interesting, and today I brought you one of the stories that I've been meaning to do for a long time, and turns out I've been doing it for a while, is cities and crimes that they remember. So today I'm doing another crime from Pune. This time it's the one that happened in my lifetime, like during my lifetime, but not while I was in the city. And it's crimes like these that echo through time, and their stories keep passing on, and I believe that someday people will tell urban legends about it. They talk about this case anyway. The name of the criminal is completely known to this day to everyone who lives and breathes in the city, and if you don't know, somebody will tell you about it. So I was just interested in the story, and so I made a podcast about it. So I'm gonna cue the fucking. The year of 2012 living in India was very weird because it started and ended with some really, really crazy crime. Of course, 2012 December is pretty recognizable to probably everybody in the world because it was one of the biggest wake up calls and one of the darkest things to come out of the Indian society. I'm talking specifically about the Jyoti Singh case, more popularly known as the Nirbhaya case. And I say the name of the victim in the case, even though that's not what's advised or is the convention, is because the mother of the victim insists on doing so. So I mean, that one is pretty much known to everybody. I think Delhi Crime came out as a series to evaluate, in detail discuss that story about like how the Jyoti Singh case was handled and everything around the case. But that wasn't the only major crime story that year. Of course, it was a very important one. It was a very socially driven one, but doesn't amount to the only one that was weird. Since you know about that one, or at least I'm assuming that you know about the Jyoti Singh case, I will leave that out for now, and I'll start in the beginning of the year in January. Now, people who are residents of Pune know this story because it's one of those crimes that's sort of woven into the fabric of the city's identity. I mean, for example, um, what's his name? Sindhit Halwai. We've covered him on this podcast before. The serial killer from Mumbai, or the Jyoti Singh case in Delhi's case. This is one of those incidents because everybody remembers what they were doing on that morning. Of course, this is not an example on the same scale, but is of the same nature. 9/11. All of America remembers what happens on 9/11, but New York specifically remembers what they were doing on that day. And I think this was the same for Pune. Of course, I didn't live here at the time, but I had news, and this was all over the news back when this was happening. And I was like a teenager probably at the time. And I remember my mom's friend, like one of her sons was studying engineering in the city at the time. And she called him specifically to tell him to not go outside that day because of how weird this story was. Now, for the facts of the case, I'll just jump right into it. On January 25th, 2012, in the morning, Mane Surve, not Mane Surve, Mana Surve is the gangster from this guy. What's his name? I'm sorry. Santosh Mane. Santosh Mane, a bus driver and an employee of the MSRTC, Maharashtra State Road Transport Commission, took a bus out of the lot in his civilian clothes, and he started driving around like a madman. By the afternoon of that day, he had run over about 9 people and injured probably 15 to 20 more in that period. A student jumped into the moving bus, grabbed the steering and made him stop, got him to stop basically, and then he was arrested by the police as the mob jumped on him. It was a chilling case, um, because after I moved to Pune, which was about 3 years after this incident, everybody still remembered it. It was fresh in everybody's memory. I remember talking to some of my local friends who used to live in the area where the Abhyankar murders happened, and they said that their parents wished that they wouldn't live to see another day of that kind of dread in the city. Of course, I just talked to two of them, and this is a very extreme example, but you realize the scale of the scandal, the scale of fear it striked in people's minds, or like people's hearts, and something like that sort of draws my attention to itself. Not just because it's a story that will eventually turn into an urban legend, but also because it's just so peculiar. I've read the entire case that happened on this person, Mr. Mane, and of course, you've seen the nature of crime. You've seen how it has worked. The guy has no priors, and he kills. So all of a sudden, he kills 9 people. It definitely looks like insanity, right? Which is what was pleaded by the defense lawyer in his in his trial in the Sessions Court. The Sessions Court, of course, considering how rare the element was in this case, held up a death sentence, a capital punishment sentence. He was to be hanged to death in according to the Sessions Court, but of course they don't have the power to do that. So I mean, they do have the power to do that, but it has to be approved by the High Court. So after the Sessions Court passed this death sentence, the High Court upheld its death sentence, and it was quite peculiar because the defense lawyer produced 3 testimonies, one of them from the Sassoon Hospital and another one from Yerwada Mental Hospital, where Yerwada Regional Hospital. I'm sorry, both of which conferred that mental insanity could not be ruled out in the case of Mr. Mane. And then the defense managed to produce a psychiatrist. I think his name was Borute. Not that it matters, but Mr. Borute confirmed that he diagnosed Santosh Mane with mania, and he was subject to have manic episodes. Now, of course, the High Court saw this testimony and discarded it because they believed that it was too convenient, and second, they couldn't. The defense, as well as they did at proving that it is a possibility that Santosh Mane had medical insanity, there is no reason to believe that he was going through an episode of mania while the crime actually happened. I mean, there was no evidence to support that. No medical record. All the prior interactions that he had with other people showed no signs of episodes of mania described in the testimonies, and it was just a normal day that turned into this massacre. And the High Court upheld the Sessions Court decision to give this man the death sentence because of how heinous his crime was and how many lives he ruined. If I'm not wrong, I came across a man back when I was in the other college who lost both of his legs during the Santosh Mane incident. For the God of me, life of me, I can't remember his name. I just remember where I met him, and I just don't want to dox him, so I'm not gonna let you know. And he remembers that day like it was yesterday, and he realizes what kind of an impact it had. and he sees why he's, I mean, I don't see what he sees, but he sees the reasons to live now, which is kind of the silver lining here. But at the same time, he misses walking. He didn't say it to me, but I'm pretty sure he misses walking. I mean, I would. So, not the point. Anyway, but Santosh Mane killed 9 people. Couldn't prove that he was mentally insane during the trial. There was no proof of intent or motive that was shown, but he was clearly caught on tape killing people. And then the defense made an appeal in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court turned over the death sentence and turned it into a life sentence in jail, which is definitely a lesser punishment. But that's because they understood that medical insanity could not be ruled out, along with other facts of the case. Even though it's clear that the mens res was completely, actus reus and mens res were completely present, and the crime was heinous, which is curious. The court recognizes that it could not prove legal insanity, but at the same time, it anticipates the possibility of medical insanity, and that's why they lessened somebody's sentence, which is interesting given the fact that Mr. Santosh Mane actually behaved completely normally in jail. His prison guards and his inmates, all of them reported that there was nothing wrong with this guy, which makes it even more scarier. That what happened on January 25th in 2012. For no rhyme or reason, Santosh Mane got into a bus, which he had full access to for years, and suddenly started driving around and killing people. Of course, the versions of the story, when you hear it from the people themselves who are not credible sources, say that he was denied a holiday for months by his boss and he didn't fit in with his contemporaries, is why he went crazy. But I have my own problems with that. I mean, maybe he was frustrated, but I didn't see that to be the reason. And plus, I mean, when people get together and talk about these crimes, they're worse than a sewing circle, really. So I'll take it with a pinch of salt. But overall, the fact that in broad daylight he killed 9 people with a bus and another 11 injured, or 15, with whatever the number is, Google it. I don't remember. It's not like I put effort into these things anyway. So there's that, and I'm just shook by the absurdity of the weirdness, the absurdity of this crime, and how the absurdity itself led to the crime being integrated into the identity of the city. Because anybody who's lived here for, like, born after 2000s, really, earlier than 2000s, maybe even 2005, clearly remembers this day, at least in this city. And I can't help but be curious about it. Well, if you find out what the intent was, if there's any reports that I missed during this podcast, please let me know in the comments or just text me on Instagram, whatever. I'll love to know. And thank you. Alright, people, that's all I have for you this week. And today I have a special message for a guy named Paras who keeps commenting on my Instagram memes. I'm sorry, dude. Filling 30 minutes of content is quite a lot of work. I know that the recording audio is easier, and plus the way I do it is, not exactly my 100%. I'll admit that. I'll try to give my 100% as well. But I can't promise you 30 minutes of content. Of course, I'm going to switch to some interviews which will give you more bulkier, more heavy files. But so far, you're going to have to manage with what you got. And I'm glad that you listen to this podcast so often and you want more of it. Thank you so much. If any of you are new to the podcast, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Keep listening to me on Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're getting this. And leave a nice comment. Let me know if you want me to bring you some merch that you'd like to buy sometime in the future, if this channel ever grows big. And make sure you stay healthy. Take care of yourself. Bye.